Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. With Maharashtra dominating the news, we ask, is this Sharad Pawar's political nemesis? Or like a phoenix, can he rise from the ashes and take flight again? Joining me to address that question, but also the entire gamut of issues that have come to the forefront in Maharashtra, is someone who is considered India's top political analyst, and certainly his knowledge and understanding of Maharashtra politics is unsurpassed. He's the chief editor of Studies in Indian Politics and co-director of Lokniti's Program for Comparative Democracy, Professor Suhas Palshikar. Professor Palshikar, let me start with something that most people would have noticed and been a little confused by. On the one hand, everyone says that they were taken by surprise by Ajit Pawar's defection on Sunday. But on the other hand, everyone also seems to say that they suspected this was going to happen. And the two seem very contradictory. So let me ask you, how do you view what's happened?
In a sense, it was expected, yes. But, the kind of enigma that surrounds Mr. Sharad Pawar in Maharashtra, everyone thought that he could avert the crisis in the party and maybe push Ajit Pawar to the corner. And that's why it was both expected as well as unexpected.
In other words, this is a letdown in terms of the capacities we thought Sharad Pawar had. He hasn't lived up to what we thought he could do.
Or maybe Ajit Pawar transcended his own limitations that have been haunting him for the past two decades or so and finally crossed over.
Quite
Because the
right.
problem with Ajit Pawar has always been whether to defy his uncle openly or not. He has done that finally, it seems.
Quite right. And this means that the equation between the two, between the uncle and the nephew, has altered. The uncle is no longer as supreme as we thought he was. The nephew is not as subservient as we thought he would be.
Yeah, that's how the balance currently seems to have tilted slightly in favor of Ajit Pawar with his action on Sunday last.
Let me get something else out of the way quickly. Are we pretty certain that these NCP defectors have crossed the floor to protect themselves against the multiple cases they face? They want, in other words, to be cleansed by the BJP's washing machine. They're not actually joining Mr. Modi to build the country, and they certainly don't have an ideological affinity with the BJP either. This is in their interest to remove the CBI or ED cases.
Yeah, three things. In fact, I would say yes, of course, many of them have been accused of various misappropriations earlier, and the BJP has used that probably to blackmail them, or they have used it to blackmail the BJP and entered the ministry. But I don't think that's the only point. The larger point is that the NCP as a party and many of these so called stalwarts who have now defected have always lived only on formal governmental power. It's very difficult for them now, after 15 years and more, to be in power, to be out of power. Uh, that's something that must have weighed upon their minds, that prepared them for a tripartite arrangement with the Mahavikas Agadi in 2019. When that broke, I think they were finding out escape routes to, in any case, gain formal power. So that I think is also the driving feature as to why these people have moved. And third thing, Mr. Karan Thapar, you said that they don't have an ideological affinity. Yes, but I would add one more footnote to that. They don't have any ideological aversion either to what Modi and the BJP have been doing. They are so obsessed with power, formal power, that they don't bother about the ideological question at all.
So, in fact, you believe the driving force was, as you put it, an obsession with power. They're used to being in office, they're not used to being in opposition, and therefore they became restless when the MVA government collapsed and they were looking for a way back into power.
That's what I would say, rather than the simple narrative that because of the ED cases they finally went there. Like Mr. Chagan Bhujbal, who actually had been to jail also. Why would he now compromise after having been in jail for a long time? So I think it's not just that, something more than that.
Let's look at what this means, first of all, for Sharad Pawar. Then I'll look at what it means for other people and other parties. On top of his nephew, not only have his closest colleagues like Praful Patel, Chhagan Bhujbal, Dilip Valse Patil deserted him, but by some accounts, these are unverified as yet, perhaps a total of 40 out of 53 MLAs have parted company. How serious a blow is this, and can a man at 82 recover?
It's absolutely serious, and I would say that though Pawar Senior has encountered many crises in his political career, this perhaps is the toughest one because it involves his family on the one hand. It also involves a number of close lieutenants whose political careers he himself facilitated, and that's why he'll have to practically build from the scratch. So for him, it is a new political innings altogether, and that's a tall task without any stalwarts by his side now.
It also suggests that perhaps he isn't as clear of judgment as he should be. After all, Praful Patel 3 weeks ago was appointed working president. Clearly, at that time, Mr. Patel was already planning to part company, and yet Mr. Pawar appointed him working president. Doesn't this show that sometimes Mr. Pawar's judgment of people is not as sharp and acute as it should be?
Or let's say that sometimes it so happens that he overestimates his powers, as I said at the beginning also. By making Praful Patel the office bearer in the party organization, he thought that he could persuade Patel to remain with the party for a little longer time than Patel has chosen to do. And that's, I think, both misjudgment, but it's not for the first time. Although we are not discussing Pawar's career as such, in 91, when he first staked his claim, there was a misjudgment, prime ministership claim. In 99, when he chose to leave the Congress party, there was another misjudgment because he thought that this time a small party can bring many parties together to form a government. And unfortunately for him, in 1999, what happened was a bipolarity emerged in politics. So yes, the contingencies of politics are such that you can't imagine anyone as a superhuman or Chanakya, as it is usually called these days.
Now, there is a conspiracy theory that was doing the rounds on Sunday night and perhaps even Monday morning. I think today, Tuesday, it's fallen by the wayside. But nonetheless, let me put it to you. There are some who believe that Pawar not only approved of his nephew's defection, but perhaps in some sense coordinated it. And there are two reasons for saying this. A, his own recent admission that he was involved in what happened in 2019 to test Devendra Fadnavis. And secondly, because people have this impression that Sharad Pawar is extremely crafty, clever, strategic. He's capable of multiple actions at the same time. But now that Pawar has sacked Praful Patel and Sunil Tatkare, would you accept that this conspiracy theory has really lost its basis?
Yes, I think in the case of Sharad Pawar, there are always conspiracy theories, and particularly if you are in Maharashtra, you will find that both his supporters and adversaries in the media would fly these conspiracy theories. The supporters think that he is extraordinary in strategy. The opponents think that he is so crafty that everything that happens in Maharashtra happens because of him. I think both are exaggerations, and let us do away with conspiracy theories. I know that in future Pawar may adjust with this situation, which is different from having acquiesced into it right at the beginning. Right now, it seems that he's bent on fighting the situation as it unfolds.
If he wasn't in any way involved in what happened, would you then accept that he made a terrible mistake promoting his daughter Supriya Sule ahead of or in perhaps opposition to his nephew Ajit Pawar? There are even reports that many of the MLAs who've defected were upset at the rise of the daughter, which they thought meant that they were losing out chances themselves. Was it a mistake to promote his daughter in the way he did?
Surely, it's because Supriya Sule doesn't have much base in Maharashtra politics as such. A party which is even now officially restricted to Maharashtra, but otherwise practically restricted to Maharashtra, not having base in the ground at the Maharashtra politics would mean that you are a parachuter. And that's the mistake he did. But I think there is a side story to it, which is that Ajit Pawar has never been interested in national level politics. He once, of course, became an MP, but he was not very effective there either. And Pawar's politics for the last 3 decades has been so deeply rooted in national politics that he cannot now leave his foothold from there. So that's the dilemma he faced, and that's why he finally chose Supriya over Ajit. Of course, in his political career, this charge of supporting first his nephew and then his daughter will always remain a blot on his pluralist political career as such.
But you've also, Professor Palshikar, put your finger on a very serious challenge Mr. Pawar faces. If he's going to recover, and it looks very difficult to see how he can, but if he's going to recover, it has to be by immersing himself in state level politics and rediscovering the support and building the party literally from the grassroots. But if he's begun to see himself over the last 3 decades as a national level politician, then he may not have either the flair or even the stamina to do it from the grassroots upwards in Maharashtra. That's the challenge suddenly.
Sure, either he loses Maharashtra or he loses his weight in Delhi politics. That's the dilemma for him right now. And I think he would choose maybe to lose some weight in Delhi, but make sure that his roots are stronger in Maharashtra because he knows very well that unless the NCP or whatever name then he would give to his new party, if the original party goes with Ajit Pawar, that party must have a regional or state level leverage. Otherwise, there is no political future in current times. He
This
knows it.
perhaps this perhaps explains why, as early as 8 o'clock yesterday morning, literally hours after the defection, he was on the road to Satara. Literally the very next morning at 8 o'clock.
Yes, but you would have seen that this also was planned. When media persons were asking him, what are your strategies ahead now? On Sunday, he said that tomorrow I will go and pay my homage to Yashwantrao Chauhan and start a new politics. So he actually had everything planned out, which also means that he had an inkling of what might happen.
Which leads you back to the conspiracy theory yet
Yes,
again.
yes. Not
Okay.
conspiracy, exactly, but he was anticipating, and someone like him would anticipate such things. Yes.
But interesting that he anticipated it but was unable to scotch it.
Yes. That means that there is going to be a major departure in state politics. Sharad Pawar's role in state politics will now be slightly less awesome than it earlier used to appear.
Let's come, Professor Palshikar, to how this will affect and impact the BJP. Only a week ago, Mr. Modi in Bhopal alleged that the NCP was responsible for some 70,000 crore of corruption. Devendra Fadnavis, a little earlier, had gone on record to say that Ajit Pawar would soon end up in jail. And yet today, Ajit Pawar is Deputy Chief Minister and the NCP is an ally of the BJP. Could this damage the BJP's reputation for integrity in fighting corruption? I mean, for us, that slogan, na khaunga, na khane dunga, not only sounds hypocritical, but I've heard people on social media changing it to khaunga or khalaunga.
Do we still, I mean, more provocatively, I would ask this question not only to you, but our viewers as well. Do we still take what the BJP says seriously? Is it really? I mean, it's a party with a difference, but the difference is this, that the party is here to actually entrench a new political culture and ideology. For that, they are ready to do anything. And therefore, I think these questions about whether they were taking corruption charges seriously or not are actually beside the point. The washing machine analogy is good for social media criticisms of the BJP, but the BJP, more than that, is something, as we have already said in our earlier conversations, also a very dangerous political outfit for democracy in the country. So it's not that they are condoning corruption, but they are strengthening their sway everywhere in the country. That's the state party, like Shiv Sena, they have now broken the NCP. So any casual observer would realize that what they are doing is one by one ensuring that state parties get weakened, and therefore the ground is cleared at the state level. That's
This
the point.
also This also suggests, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the BJP wants to weaken and, if possible, right out of the picture regional state parties, because those parties are the ones that put up the toughest fight against the BJP. If then the field is left open to Congress, the BJP is much more confident of demolishing Congress with ease. So there is a strategy behind this.
Absolutely, I think I've been saying this again and again that the long term strategy of the BJP currently seems to be the exact reverse of what Pramod Mahajan and Atal Bihari Vajpayee had crafted in the 90s, early 90s, mid 90s, which is that they want to destroy or at least decimate state level parties and strong leaders. Nobody today listens or hears the name of Assam Gana Parishad, for example. The entire politics of Assam is now around the BJP. Then you have smaller players like Eknath Shinde in Maharashtra and many others in Maharashtra, since we are discussing Maharashtra. They will be thrown by the wayside a couple of years down the line. It is easier to then do business with smaller parties rather than a stronger party. In Andhra Pradesh, also, for example, they would probably go with TDP because the TDP currently is like the NCP in Maharashtra, restless with being out of power. Jagan is in power. So they might do business with Chandrababu and later on maybe do whatever they want with his party.
This reminds me of that Marxist phrase. They look upon these regional parties, who they ally with only to demolish and obliterate, as useful idiots.
Sure.
But
In the
there's also,
same
sorry,
extreme, the ideological extremes operate politically in a similar manner.
if you look at it a little further, this also is an acknowledgement by the BJP that if they hadn't broken the NCP, then the combination of what was left of the Shiv Sena, the NCP, and Congress was actually likely to put up a very strong fight in Maharashtra. And they needed to weaken that to be able to clear the way for themselves. That's a sort of subtle acknowledgement behind what they've done.
I think surely in the last 1 year, both these things were happening. The Eknath Shinde government was not performing very well. And on the other hand, there seemed to be somewhat greater support for the Mahavikas Agadi, whatever remained of it. And therefore, the BJP was prepared to make this bargain so that in the Lok Sabha, they can win as many seats as possible. Both Eknath Shinde and Ajit Pawar would be less interested in Lok Sabha seats, so there would be a bargain for assembly seats rather than Lok Sabha seats. That would give a clear ground to the BJP to contest more seats for the Lok Sabha from the state.
And obviously, Mr. Modi needs that because he's worried about his performance in South India, and he could be worried also about his performance in other parts of North India. Therefore, if he can secure a larger number of 48 seats in Maharashtra, it gives him a better chance of continuing for a third term.
Surely, because whatever they say, the figure 300 seems to be at the moment quite challenging for the BJP to reach yet again. Naturally, therefore, they have to now find out new areas where they can penetrate or consolidate the older territories. Maharashtra is one place where they can do it. They are doing it.
Let's come at this point to Eknath Shinde. Now, there's no doubt that he sounded triumphant on Sunday and even on Monday, but in truth, won't the incorporation of the NCP into his cabinet create problems for him? First, he has fewer cabinet places to give to his own party men, many of whom were already preparing themselves, I'm told, to become new ministers. And secondly, Ajit Pawar is a strong administrator with a lot of experience in government, and that could affect Shinde's command and control over the cabinet as well.
Shinde has practically lost his chief ministership with Sunday's developments. Already, with Devendra Fadnavis as the deputy chief minister, there was an atmosphere in the state where the deputy chief minister makes all the pronouncements rather than the chief minister. Now you have two strong deputy chief ministers. So what remains with Mr. Eknath Shinde is only the formal chair of the chief minister, nothing more. So it's a big blow to the breakaway group of the Shiv Sena. Plus the frustrations that you pointed out, namely his supporters will ask him this question: why did we defect if we are not getting enough share of offices and power?
So he's been hollowed out in a sense.
Yes, and that would be useful in negotiating with him for seat sharing adjustments.
Absolutely. But there's another cloud that I think hangs over the horizon as far as Mr. Shinde is concerned. Now, the BJP won't face a problem if Speaker Narwekar rules against Shinde and the 15 other MLAs in the defection case, because the BJP now has NCP support to replace him. Of course, I'm presuming that there are enough NCP MLAs, but taking that presumption on board, could this be, in effect, a green signal for Speaker Narwekar to rule against Shinde and the 15 other Shiv Sena MLAs, and then the BJP can claim, look, we are committed to propriety, we are committed to constitutionalism, we are doing precisely what the Supreme Court said. It could actually be a moment when the BJP tries to say, don't question our commitment, we are committed.
I don't really think so, for the simple reason that if the speaker does that, it would also mean that the speaker will have to do the same with Ajit Pawar's group subsequently. So that is very unlikely. Secondly, if that happens, whatever the formal position the BJP may take, the Eknath Shinde group would practically rebel against them, because they would say that it's not the speaker, you are actually remote controlling the speaker. Since when did the speaker become so impartial in India's legislatures that the speaker would give such a ruling? So I don't think that is very likely to happen. But yes, they are ensuring themselves against any eventuality.
Let's come, Professor Palshikar, to Devendra Fadnavis. From chief minister, he's already been reduced to deputy chief minister. Now he's become one of two deputy chief ministers, and I presume he could also end up losing one of his key portfolios, home, finance, planning, to Ajit Pawar. So behind the broad smile, I take it he also will be a little concerned.
Oh, yes, you said that Eknath Shinde was making a brave face of himself. But that is equally true of Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, because this is the second time that he has to take a second fiddle in state politics. The first time was when an inexperienced person like Eknath Shinde was made the chief minister in the place of Devendra Fadnavis. That was a snub, I guess. And now this is the second time that he has now been made to share deputy chief minister's portfolio with Ajit Pawar, who obviously would be one of the major rivals of Devendra Fadnavis for the chief minister's post. There are, of course, news items and rumors that he would be pushed to the center so that there is no ego clash between him and Ajit Pawar. We don't know what happens to that. But the type of politics that Devendra Fadnavis has been doing, I think he would be unhappy if he is pushed to the center.
So, although the BJP has secured itself by luring across the NCP, it's made its own party leader somewhat unhappy. And certainly, it also now knows that there'll be several Shiv Sainik MLAs who have been denied chance of preferment, and they'll be unhappy. So there are also some internal problems that the BJP has to handle at this moment of success.
Surely. I think the best way to describe the entire situation is that it is something like a typical whodunit. You never know what is exactly going to happen next. And I really don't think that this is the end of the story, both from the end of Sharad Pawar himself and on the side of Devendra Fadnavis as well. BJP, while being looking very successful and manipulative, may have put itself at the mercy of the breakaway faction of the NCP. Remember that all those who have broken away from the NCP currently, Ajit Pawar himself and many others, are actually very strong leaders in their own rights. They are not necessarily all of them only district level leaders. Their capacities of mobilizing people transcend districts of Maharashtra. And therefore, the BJP will be equally in a jeopardy if the NCP really handles its portfolios efficiently and overpowers the cabinet.
Let me put another sort of jeopardy the BJP could face. Suppose Ajit Pawar is unable to produce 36 MLAs supporting him. And that will entirely depend on how Sharad Pawar plays his hand. Already, I think 2 MLAs who were either present at the swearing in or had indicated they will
Yes.
support Ajit Pawar have returned. If that number of 36 is not achieved, the BJP would be very embarrassed because suddenly this whole thing could fall apart, just as, not as dramatically, but just as it happened in 2019. A second such setback would look terrible for the BJP.
Would look terrible, but at the same time, the way political atmosphere is being shaped in the country, there has now emerged a core voter of the BJP who is not worried about these questions of image, propriety, and commitment, and so on, or consistency for that matter. The BJP hopes to retain their support, irrespective of whatever loss of face it may have to accept. Secondly, it would say that, well, it is Ajit Pawar who has failed to deliver for the second time. In the sense that would be practically an end to Ajit Pawar's career more than the BJP's career. If, as you say, he fails to produce 36 MLAs or 35, whatever number, then it would be for him a very, very tricky situation. He would be a desperate person currently to actually get hold of those 34, 35.
So this could be a denouement for him. This could
Yes.
actually be a break for him.
Yeah, that's why I said that this is something which is actually, one doesn't know whether to read it as a comedy, but looks like more a tragedy because everyone seems to be a loser. I don't see any direct gains purely to any single player in the state currently. Everyone is likely to lose or have already lost. That is the situation where the split in the NCP has brought Maharashtra's politics.
Where does this leave the attempt by opposition parties to form some sort of electoral unity against the BJP, particularly with next year's Lok Sabha elections in mind? Their next meeting is due in Bangalore in roughly 2 weeks' time. There was even some speculation in the media that Sharad Pawar could replace Nitish Kumar as convener. I presume Sharad Pawar's hopes are dashed. But what about the wider concept of opposition unity? How badly damaged is that?
Objectively speaking, I would say for them, the opposition, these developments in Maharashtra more than emphasize the fact that they must do something and come together and have some give and take. In reality, it might dampen the spirits of NCP in Maharashtra. It might be a warning to many other parties elsewhere who have been in the forefront of these opposition unity efforts. We don't know whether this second conclave of the opposition parties would actually take place or not, because there have always been also been speculations that it is going to be deferred. Everyone seems to be on their guard. I thought it was a mistake if they were going to defer the meeting because developments in Maharashtra have underscored the urgency of opposition unity.
Well, as of last night, they've announced that the meeting will happen not on the 13th, but the 17th and 18th. But they've pushed it back 5 days. Maybe that's the start of a process of deferring it further. We don't know. But as of now, it's scheduled for 17th, 18th. Let me, when I end, come to what this means for the speaker. Now, If the uncertainty of MLAs on either side means that we end up with less than 36, then this won't qualify as a split. And the only way these MLAs would be safe is if Speaker Narvekar can interpret creatively who is the chief whip and who is the assembly leader. But is his capacity and ability to do that intact? I know he did it earlier, but after the recent Supreme Court judgment, does he lose a lot of his capacity to interpret creatively and help people?
I think he would still try and interpret it as liberally as possible to ensure that this government remains in power. As of now, legal wrangles would begin both in the Supreme Court and before the Election Commission. That would give time to Rahul Narvekar as the Speaker to keep postponing a decision. Remember that even after the Supreme Court ruling in the Shiv Sena case, he has still not taken any specific decision in that case. So the NCP case would come even later. And by that time, both politics would have changed and the context would have changed, because anyway, this assembly now has left barely 15, 16, 16 months to go. Then it becomes an academic exercise, even if the court rules anything. And I repeat, as far as loss of face is concerned, who bothers? No politician today bothers for loss of face, because these are only formal discussions where loss of face will be discussed. The public discourse has already been detached from questions of constitutional morality.
Quite right. The only problem, and it may not be a major problem, is that the Supreme Court has asked him to take a decision in what they call, quotes, a reasonable time. And Sanjay Raut has gone on record to say that after 90 days have lapsed, they will go back to the Supreme Court to ask for an order expediting. If that happens, then I imagine Mr. Narvekar's hands are tied.
Sure, that might happen. But again, as I said, for NCP case, that reasonable time begins only this Sunday or even later after the complaints are made to him about defection. I don't know whether, as far as today, the NCP has formally complained to the Speaker of Maharashtra legislature about the defections. There have been letters of throwing them out, etc. Right?
You may be right, sir, but I think, in fact, Jayant Patel late last night did write to Mr. Narvekar wanting the 9 who were sworn in to be thrown out and to lose their membership. They haven't said anything about others because as yet they don't officially know who are the others.
Yes.
That is still in doubt. And I think Mr. Pawar is hoping that some of the so-called others will quietly come back to him. But let me come to the other issue, this time faced by the Election Commission. If the majority of party workers and the majority of the membership stays loyal to Sharad Pawar, despite the fact 2/3 of his MLAs have defected, can he present a case to the Election Commission to convince them that the party symbol and name should stay with him? Or given the character of the commission and the way it tends to bend the knee to the government in Delhi, is that very unlikely?
Sharad Pawar will certainly do that because the Supreme Court's latest ruling in Shiv Sena case clearly says that while the numbers test is important, it need not be the only test. And it has in fact laid down guidelines for that. The Election Commission is in a sense bound by those guidelines. The latter part of the answer is what you said, that this is again a theoretical discussion, not only hypothetical but theoretical. The way Election Commission will perform will probably depend upon how the Election Commission perceives itself. Does it perceive itself as an autonomous protector of fair play, or does it perceive itself as an instrument of the hegemon in Delhi? That will decide how the Election Commission acts. And like you, I am also afraid that the Election Commission will not bother about its autonomy much. That's the fear I have.
One last question, Professor Palshikar. In the lead up to the 2024 elections, do you see similar attempts to break political parties happening in other states? Bihar is one where the press is already speculating that the JDU could start to splinter. Could Rajasthan be another, or is that a case where Congress is already doing enough damage to themselves, the BJP doesn't have to intervene?
Yeah, the way the BJP politics runs, I think Bihar would be the major target, both because it's a large state both also because Nitish and RJD can sway the Lok Sabha elections. That's another reason. But also because Nitish, like in Maharashtra's case, Sharad Pawar, have taken the fight to the BJP by splitting with the BJP and forming an alliance with RJD. So I think they would want to demonstrate that whoever comes into our path, their political careers would be put into difficulty or jeopardy. For that, Bihar probably seems to be an excellent case for them. Rajasthan, as you said, is unnecessary for them to do much. The Congress will do the harm itself. There could be other parties as well. We don't know. They have played this game with Trinamool Congress earlier. Down south, they can play the same game in the case of Andhra Pradesh, perhaps, with YSR Congress. So nobody is really protected. Nobody is protected.
So we've entered a time when regional parties not only have to woo and win votes from the electorate, they also have to defend themselves against the strategies of the BJP in Delhi.
Yes, so far the regional parties like BJD thought in Odisha that they are protected from the BJP if they buy peace with them. But the condition for that is that for Lok Sabha elections, they have to keep away from this idea of opposition unity. That's the condition the BJP has laid in a sense. And I think, therefore, all these developments need to be connected to the larger picture, just as they are related to Maharashtra state level politics also.
This also means that, with the exception of one or two states, perhaps Uttarakhand, perhaps UP, what Mr. Modi wants most of all is to secure a majority in the Lok Sabha, and he doesn't mind if that happens at the cost of losing one or two state governments.
Yes, for them, I think the major target currently is Lok Sabha 24 to ensure. And for Modi, 300 is important because the type of awe he creates around him and his party creates around him, even if they get 275 or 280, it would look like a defeat, though it is not a defeat in reality. So for them, this is very important that they repeat the performance of 2019, if not improve upon it. And for that, they are ready to go to any length. That's the message every single action of the BJP gives.
Professor Palshikar, thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insights into the situation in Maharashtra. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.